Hello, we're back again. I'm just going to demonstrate another tool. This is a Pico pressure transducer, a WX500. It's got 3 settings here, and again, it's a very accurate tool. It could be used for fuel pressures. It could be used to check vacuum, manifold pressure, vacuum, and also fuel pressures too. But on this occasion, our problem don't lie in any of those areas. So what we're going to do, Kyle, we're going to check each cylinder one by one, starting from number 1. We know the culprit's on number 4, but we're going to have to go through the whole all 4 barrels. Okay, so I'm going to reconnect it, something like that, and delete. Now the system's running. All we need to do now is basically crank the engine. So would you crank, please? Okay, stopping just there. So we're going to stop this. That's it. This is what we're looking at. Basically, this is cylinder number 1, and the pressures are 11.18 bar. That's at the peak. If you can pick that up on camera. So there was a number of cycles we went through. I would say that according to that's probably correct. So what we're going to do now, we're going to briefly stop the camera till we set up on number 2. Yeah, now we're ready to test cylinder number 2 in this case. So could you crank him over, please? Okay, that's cranking. Right, what I have to do is stop that and in this particular case we have got 10.46 bar. That's occurred in 1.6 seconds. So that's relatively equal, in comparison to cylinder number 1. So what we're going to basically do is go to the next cylinder. Okay, please. Okay, stop cranking. Let's just stop this and go back in the bather, and let's have a look what sort of readings that we've got on cylinder number 3. This one appears to be a little bit higher at 11.04 bar. So they are relatively equal, but nevertheless, it's still a little bit down on cylinder number 2, isn't it? What did we get? 10.46 bar on cylinder number 2.
Well, so we got 11.4, I believe.
10.18. Yeah, well, so now we're going to go on to the offending cylinder. We're connected up now to what looks like the offending cylinder. So would you like to crank, please? Okay, stop there. Let's recapture this. because this is very interesting. This particular cylinder was the offending one. It's only reaching a maximum of 4.278 bar, so it's under 5 bar. So basically, this is losing 50% or more than 50% of its compression. That's certainly indicating that this is not a valve problem, this is something more serious. Could be piston related. Basically, explaining these tools, they are very accurate, and in particularly the pressure transducer. This tool is going to be definitely a tool of the future, where it's able to measure in manifold vacuum, basically fuel pressures, anything like that. It's definitely going to prove very, very useful. I'm going to keep it very close in my toolbox. But now, I think I'd like to revert to the basic standard compression tester. The basic tools that we're all used to, and it's still intrusive. It's still intrusive, but nevertheless, it's a tool that's in everybody's toolbox. But going back to the beginning, the easiest method is when you connect up the current clamp through the 600 amp clamp there. It's relatively easy, it's non-intrusive, and it certainly does give an accurate reading. But bear in mind, when we've been cranking this engine, be mindful that you could also get a bore wash if these injectors are firing. And can you smell raw fuel? Obviously, we can smell raw fuel. There's always the possibility of bore wash. But nevertheless, what we've tested here is backing up the fault code. So although saying that, looking at these plugs, number four was wet, without a doubt, and these are new plugs. They're new plugs. I mean, this is clearly cylinder number 4, although we did find, was it cylinder number 2? It was. It was wet on the outside, so there was also a sign of concern. What was the reading on number 2? 10.46 bar. So basically, it could be 15-20 pounds down on cylinder number 3, which was a higher reading of what? 11.75.
11.04.
11.8.
11.04.
Right, so I think one of the fault codes that was calling and logging a random cylinder misfire as well as a complete dead hole. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to rig up, just for the camera, the compression tester. I'm probably going to put a drop of oil in the cylinders, because it looks obvious that we have got some cylinder bore wash there. So okay, we'll join you shortly. We've just briefly come back because something has been spotted on the screen here. If you take the 0 line, basically anything above the line is a pressure. Anything below the line is a vacuum. It does appear that this is excessive. I'm just going to have a look and use the cursor to see if we've got a reading. Basically, it's 0.641 of a millibar of vacuum. Whether this is going to need further investigation, but under cranking, the reading should be 0. I am rather surprised that we found this. A pressure transducer, any pressures over the 0 bar would indicate a back pressure in the cylinder. In a lot of cases, you would use this tool, for instance, on a poor running engine, and that lacked power. This would indicate excessive pressure, would point towards a restriction in the exhaust. It could be the exhaust, it could be the catalyst. Restricted. But on the other hand, if you go into the vacuums, which is what we've got here, that would indicate a restriction in the air intake. So bearing in mind, we're going to be mindful of this, and an engine under cranking shouldn't produce any vacuum at all. And if my information is correct, an engine like this on idle should be produced at a vacuum of at least 20 inches of mercury would be an acceptable number, or it could perhaps be even a little higher. But however, on cranking, that does appear to be a little bit high, although I don't think that's the cause of our problem in this case. But the tool, this particular tool, the WX500, would find a restricted exhaust, restricted breathing very, very quickly. I just brought it back on camera just to mention that, is how useful this tool is going to prove to be in the future. Okay, so what we do is we'll shut that down. So we did have a slight leakage there on a connector, and that's one of the reasons. So we've got a number here of around about 150 psi. I'm not sure what the spec is on this engine, but we've got a reading in bar here, 10.4, 10.5 bar. So that's roughly the same as what we've been getting on the pressure transducer. Whilst the pressure's holding, however, is it sealed properly? Well, initially it wasn't, but this has given us a rough indication of just about what we've been collecting on, or rather picking up through the pressure transducer. So I'm basically going to go to the next cylinder now, and you'll be back. Yeah. Right. We're basically rigged up. We're rigged up to cylinder number 3. We had some fitting problems on cylinder number 2. So we're just going to move on and check it. Okay, Kyle, cranking please. Okay. So what we've done is it's up to 125 psi, and it was rising. Nevertheless, what this is basically proving, that there can't be the normal compressor test can't be absolutely bulletproof in this case. And the other issue here is basically the time it's taken to reach the 125, although it was still rising. So at this point, I don't think that there's an issue with this cylinder, but there is that possibility. There could be an issue, and I said there could be, on cylinder number 2, although we're not concerned about that. And basically now we're going to go to the offending cylinder. Okay. So we're basically rigged up now on the offending cylinder. So Kyle, could you crank please? Okay, that's cranking. So what we have here is a cylinder pressure of around about 65 to 70 pounds here, which really backs up the test that we carried out earlier. But just to point out, the current clamp test is unintrusive. It's basically, it's fairly accurate if you're looking for something where there's, you know, damage. It did show up as the cylinders look down on around 50%. We looked at it. This is around about 4.5 bar, which is roughly what we were getting on the scope there, on the pressure transducer, although we could see that was clearly, what was it reading at? 4.8 bar.
Something like that.
Something to that extent. It's roughly this. I know that I've used the other ones, the current clamp, the scope, etc. Yeah, for speed basically. Total accuracy, the choice of tool will certainly be the Pico WS500. As we've seen earlier, it's accurate. It is showing that. Although, saying that, why did it take so long to crank up? I mean, it's taken at least 10 seconds. You know, it should come up in roughly about half that time. This is why I can say, some distrust whether we've got a good seal down in the barrels. I know cylinder number 2 is a little bit suspect. That'll remain to be seen when this engine is taken down and the damage basically can be physically examined, but it's for sure that our problem is lying on number 4 cylinder, although I wouldn't rule out an issue with number 2. It seems unlikely because on these engines, it's cylinder number 4 that comes up every time. If you consider the mileage, the year, this is what, it's a 14, it's on a 64 plate, and 25,000 miles on the clock. It's literally, this is ridiculous. It's certainly not acceptable and needs to be highlighted. Whether Vauxhall are aware of it, and I'm pretty certain they are, but at this particular stage, I think when the complaint was made initially, it wasn't by you, Kyle, it was by a previous owner, wasn't it? Was the
I
previous
don't know
owner?
if they complained about the piston 4 issue or not, but obviously they went into limbo and everything.
Yeah.
I took it.
Yeah.
So,
And what's the other fact here? I understand this vehicle's been back to the main dealer.
yeah, but they proceeded to tell me that it was out of warranty.
They basically told you that. They did a
They said they
compression
did.
test on it as well.
Apparently
Did they tell you what the what the results of the tests were?
so. No.
No.
I asked for results, but they said that they couldn't provide the results for the compression test. And then they did actually try again to me to
Yeah.
pay for it. Which,
I don't know if you heard that, but the main dealer actually did a compression test, but didn't tell the owner,
the results.
Kyle, as to what the readings were. Again, what's the story behind that? Well, we don't know. We just don't know. But I'm pretty certain that Vauxhall and the dealers are aware of its problems. But what I'm pointing out is, a vehicle with this sort of mileage, and it's what, just over 3 years old. Is it 3 years old?
Just over 3.
Yeah, yeah. It's totally unacceptable. So anyhow, we're going to be closing up here, and I think at a later stage, Kyle, when we take this down, we're going to definitely make further videos and making others aware out there of what sort of a problem we've got here. In my opinion, I mean, this is quite serious. It is serious. And it's certainly not a cheap job. I mean, has there been a quote made for pistons and con rods on this engine?
£2,200 driving job, which is actually by Philip Nichols up in Wrexham, which is Wales. And that's him providing everything. Pistons, con rods, all gaskets.
No. And how much are the parts separate from?
The pistons alone, between £850 and £950, with con rods and arc bolts.
Between 850 and 900 pounds for pistons and con rods.
That's obviously forged, so the problem
Yeah.
won't arise again.
Absolutely. So in other words, this problem keeps repeating itself. It is obvious, well, it's obvious to me and I think the rest of us, that this engine has not been developed as it should have been in the first place. Definitely not. Failures in this day and age at such low mileage is just unheard of. It's the first time that this phenomenon has been brought to my attention. However, I think we need to warn other owners here. I think not to drive them too hard, although that's besides the point. This is a performance vehicle, and it's a vehicle that should be driven. Basically, so what we're going to do, we're going to close up on this particular video, and we're going to definitely follow it up for when the engine's actually stripped down and we can physically examine what has actually happened. But it's definitely piston failure in this case. Okay then, so see you next time round, and thanks. Basically, this is the engine started and running, and you can clearly hear it, you can clearly feel the misfire. Initially on first start it doesn't, and then within a couple of seconds the misfire reoccurs. When we raise the engine RPM, if you could, Kyle, you can hear that. Can you just hold it there about 2 grand? Yeah, that misfire vanishes. So, yeah, it's, you know it's definitely compression related. Now he's come off of a cold start now. And now the church is literally damaged. very, very bad. Okay then, well, we'll have to take this down at some stage, Kyle. We'll get the parts ordered and basically we'll be taking it from there. So, okay, I just thought I'd make this as a little addition, although pointing out there's also another way. Could you turn them off a sec, please? Basically, there is another method. There you go. There is another method, and when I first looked at this car, the very first check I conducted was a simple cranking test, disabling the ignition coil and cranking it. So, Kyle, would you like to crank it one more time? What you need to be listening for is an uneven beat. And there you are. And there it is. It's not turning over evenly with one cylinder down. The engine is going to speed up and then slow down. Okay, then I think we'll be wrapping up now. I just thought I'd mention this, pointing out as one of the first things you do. So thanks for that, then we'll see you in the next version. All right?